Dmitry Bivol gets his revenge against Artur Beterbiev and is now the undisputed light heavyweight champion. We're going to go through that and almost all the fights on this card, which was a very interesting card in Riyadh. We had a lot of boxing on Saturday. We're going to recap it now. Dmitry Bivol beats Artur Beterbiev by majority decision, gets 116-112, 115-113, and a 114-114 draw on the cards. I had it 115-113. I also had the last fight, 115-113. I thought Dmitry Bivol edged out part one, though I think this win in part two was a little bit more obvious. He was aggressive early. Beterbiev closed strong, but it wasn't quite enough. And I thought the judges in large part got this right. Let's look at the numbers now. Remember, punch stats are obviously not always the most consistent thing in boxing, and they don't always tell you, hey, exactly everything that's going on. You got to trust your eyes to some extent, but we'll zoom in here. Okay, here you can see the punch stats for Dmitry Bivol's win over Artur Beterbiev. Round one, you see it right out the gate. 33 punches thrown, 12 landed, outlands Artur Beterbiev 12-4. In round two, 15 of 55 to Artur Beterbiev's 9 of 49. That makes a lot of sense, and it tracks with what you saw. These punch stats don't feel inaccurate at all. And Dmitry Bivol was 17 of 53 in round three. This was a really good round for him. He was throwing with precision. His jab was really on point also for basically the entire fight, but especially this sort of stretch. And then he was leaning on it a little bit more in 4, 5, and 6, where he got less active and was getting outpointed by Artur Beterbiev for longer stretches. And it felt like Dmitry Bivol was just sort of conserving his energy for late in the fight. But Artur Beterbiev sort of wakes up in round three, throws 66 punches, 4, 5, and 6. 4 and 5 in particular, Beterbiev is more active, 16 of 67. You see that there, 21 of 76. He is not more accurate, but he's outworking Dmitry Bivol by a lot. 67 to 46 in terms of output in that fourth round, and then 76 to 31 in round five. That's an extreme, that's much more than double Dmitry Bivol's output there. And then over here, this is where the fight sort of swings back, and this was so interesting. You see around here in round 7. 9 of 44, starts to turn it around. Artur Beterbiev takes a little bit of a back seat there, 4 for 47, and he was getting less accurate as this progressed. You see, he does not touch 20% again after round 5, which I found very interesting in terms of his accuracy. Like, he was missing a lot. He was hitting Dmitry Bivol's gloves a lot. And Dmitry Bivol was back on the bicycle, but also not just moving around for the sake of moving around, but was obviously moving around for opportunities to counter and create these angles. Artur Beterbiev, 4, 9, 5, 12, 8, and 9 punches landed in those last 6 rounds. And where he won that last fight and sort of really took over, Dmitry Bivol was accurate down the stretch, was landing more in some of these rounds as well, because round 6, first of all, you see it here, 18 of 42 versus 11 of 57, that tracks. 9 of 44 versus 4 of 47, 15 of 44 versus 9 of 53, 11 of 43 versus 5 of 53. That stretch between 6 through 9 is where it felt like, all right, Bivol's really taking this fight back. I had it 6-3 after 9 rounds, and then he ended strong. Felt like round 11 was one of his better rounds as well. But I ended up having this 115, 113 for Dmitry Bivol. If you look down here where the full punch stats report is, Dmitry Bivol lands 170 out of 547, 31%. Beterbiev only 121 out of 688, so busier and much less accurate, 17.6%. What you see is just a more accurate Dmitry Bivol, and round by round, just a better overall, a little bit more of a complete performance there. I think the 116, 112, I don't think that was irresponsible judging at all. And it felt like a fair scorecard. The most fair scorecard was that 115, 113. As somebody who scored the fight 115, 113, I do say so myself that was pretty well judged. But great fight, great performance. And I think the trilogy has to be next. I know David Benavidez was there. He's sort of waiting in line, waiting in the wings here, but this has to be the trilogy. Like, we have to see this probably toward the end of the year, because it sounds like Dmitry Bivol in particular has talked about wanting to take time off. And it makes sense because they just fought 4 months ago. They fought now. I expect we get this in the fall. But this is the fight of all fights. And honestly, both guys don't have anything left to prove. We'll see what happens in part 3. Okay, we don't need punch stats for this one. Joseph Parker versus Martin Bakole. Martin Bakole gets the call to replace IBF heavyweight champion Daniel Dubois on 48 hours notice, maybe. shows up 310 pounds. Can't blame him, all things considered. He put his record on the line. He put it out there. He is highly regarded by the sanctioning bodies and the boxing public. Martin Bakole is ranked top 2, top 3 by multiple governing bodies, putting that all on the line for this fight against Joseph Parker, and he gets knocked out in the second round. Joseph Parker's 267 pounds for this fight. The biggest he's ever showed up in terms of the weigh-in in his career was 255 and a quarter pounds against Joe Joyce. Joe Joyce knocked him out. I think one of two things could happen for Joseph Parker next. He has the interim title from the WBO. For now, Alexander Usyk does hold all the belts except for the IBF that's held by Daniel Dubois. So Joseph Parker deserves a shot at Alexander Usyk, or you just run back what you tried to do here, which is Daniel Dubois versus Joseph Parker. He deserves a title shot next. And then for Martin Bakole, we'll see what happens next. But ultimately, he's a fun fighter. He's an entertaining fighter and highly ranked. I don't know if this will hurt him too much given the context of the situation. So we should see him before too long in a very entertaining fight and one that could get him back in the win column. Shakur Stevenson versus Josh Padley. Shakur Stevenson was supposed to fight Floyd Schofield. Josh Padley steps in because Floyd Schofield has an illness, and Josh Padley actually ranked higher than Shakur Stevenson, number 12 by the WBC instead of number 13, where Floyd Schofield is. Josh Padley came into this fight 15-0 with 4 knockouts, and Shakur Stevenson was minus 250 to win by technical knockout or knockout, which you don't see very often in a Shakur Stevenson fight. Okay, so here you have the punch stats for Shakur Stevenson's win over Josh Padley. He gets busy right out the gate. He's landed 16 of 37 in round 2, doubles his landed punches from round 1, 8 of 34, and then progressively just gets more and more aggressive, which you don't often see from Shakur Stevenson. Round 3, 17 of 35. Then round 4, you have a 19 of 42, then a 25 of 53 in round 5, 28 of 53. So he's getting more accurate as the fight progresses. Round 8 and 9, round 8, you see a 21 of 55 right here, and then in round 9, you see that big number, 37 of 59, which is just ridiculous level of accuracy from Shakur Stevenson. And then over here, the power punches. This is the big one right here. Look at the progression. 2 for 8 for Shakur Stevenson. Power punches, round 1, and then 8 of 13, 7 of 15, 13 of 28, 17 of 35, 22 of 41. More of a concerted effort to get his guy out of there, which you don't always see from Shakur Stevenson, which you want to see from Shakur Stevenson on a regular basis, to the point where power punches, round 9, 32 of 51, 62.7%. So that's where he landed in terms of total punches. The percentage, 62.7, just mirrors exactly what he did in terms of power punches, 32 for 51. You do not see that very often in boxing. And granted, Josh Padley was ready to go. This is the round where he got dropped 3 times. Total punches real quick, 188 of 419, and then just 66 of 370 for Josh Padley, not giving you enough there. And then the power punches here, 125 power punches to 57, and the accuracy for Shakur Stevenson, nearly 50%. Overall, we'll see what happens next. Obviously, I want to see Shakur Stevenson versus Tank Davis. Talked about it on this channel plenty. And that's the fight for me to make, not just at 135, but in boxing. And for Shakur Stevenson, I think what's actually going to happen is going to be William Zepeda. William Zepeda is WBC interim champion, but William Zepeda has to get past Tevin Farmer in Mexico in March. It's not a gimme. Not a gimme at all. Let's get to Carlos Adames and Hamzah Sheeraz. Not a word that I like throwing around in this sport, so to speak, but he did. He got robbed here. I had this 116, 112 for Carlos Adames. Hamzah Sheeraz was grooved to sort of be the champion here. They picked out a middleweight champion that they sort of don't think was going to survive this test, and he did. And Carlos Adames did a great job of using his head movement to create these different angles. I think the head movement surprised a lot of people to show that he's more than just a power puncher. He outworked his opponent, ultimately. Don't know if there's going to be a rematch. Frankly, I wouldn't be too interested in a rematch, especially if Hamzah Sheeraz is going to have the home field advantage there. The crowd was booing Carlos Adames. They wanted Sheeraz to win. There's a video going around of Turki Al-Sheikh telling Hamzah Sheeraz that he's trailing by 2 points. And people are speculating that he actually looked at the judges' scorecards before telling him that. Don't know if that's necessarily the case, but I wouldn't be too surprised given that Sheeraz was clearly set up to have his breakout moment here, and he failed. So Sheeraz looked fine in the beginning. He's outworking Carlos Adames. He's leaning on the jab heavily. You see it here, 10 of 37 punches, 7 of 29 were jabs. So that means everything else, 3 of 8. Working off the jab, did a good job. Carlos Adames was sort of struggling to find his range, so to speak. And while he was backing up Hamzah Sheeraz the entire time, he wasn't in a position to throw enough and land enough early on. But then in round 2, this begins to turn. 7 of 31 versus 9 of 24. So now he's to the point where he's outworking Hamzah Sheeraz, and also he's beating him in the power punch department, doing more damage here. 5 of 12, whereas Sheeraz was just 2 of 4, 7 of 20 jabs. So only 4 punches were non-jabs in round 2. And then as you just go deeper into this fight, this second half, and really a little bit before that, this is where Carlos Adames begins to take over. So that's 12 for 50 versus 11 of 41. But again, the majority of the punches that you're seeing from Carlos Adames are power punches. If you're just glancing at the numbers here, and this backs up everything that we saw as we were watching this fight together, Carlos Adames lands more power punches than Hamzah Sheeraz in every round in this fight except 1 and 4. And then in round 3, they both land 1 each. Sheeraz doing it on 3 attempts, Adames doing it on 16. And in terms of power punches, Adames is not just landing more punches, but he's also more accurate. Look at the percentages down here, right? So in round 5, he's 8 of 27 in terms of power punches versus 4 for 13. The percentages is about the same, but he's doubling the output. And then it flips. The second half of the fight, he's outlanding Sheeraz in terms of power punches by a lot, but in terms of the percentage, it's 38 to 31, it's 33 to 5, it's 48 to 23, it's 50 to 21, it's 24 to 18, 48, 39, and 31 to 28. Like, it's just progressively, he's just outlanding him in terms of just straight up power punches. And then the straight up punches, he has some success here too. 35, 33 in round 6, 33 to 20 in round 7. And these are rounds that he's busier in. And then over here, bottom of the screen, outlands Hamzah Sheeraz for the fight in totality. 143 out of 509, Sheeraz 135 out of 490. In terms of power punches, Carlos Adames is 90 out of 257, 35%. So he's landing a higher percentage of just total punches, more output, more landed punches. Also, 45 body punches. So half of these power punches that he landed were body shots, 35% also. Hamzah Sheeraz, 48 out of 167. He only lands 5 body shots in terms of power punches and only lands 9 body shots the entire fight. Carlos Adames is landing 73 body punches and 70 punches to the head in this fight. So much more punch variety here. Hamzah Sheeraz, very jab heavy, 87 of 323 in terms of just jabs, 27%. Whereas Adames, he landed a bunch of jabs as well, 53 out of 252. Not as much, but he's doing more damage with these punches. And that's the story that this fight told. If you just look at the fight itself, look at the numbers and all these different things, Adames did a really good job. Came away very impressed. As somebody who's liked him already leading up to this fight, came away very impressed with what Carlos Adames sort of demonstrated. And hopefully he gets a fair shake in his next fight, because I thought he got robbed out of an impressive victory. And Hamzah Sheeraz didn't look quite as terrifying as some people wanted you to think leading up to this. So we'll see if they run this back. I am not really interested in them running this back. I thought Adames won this clear, and I think they can both go their separate ways. But if they do it again, hopefully Adames gets a fair shake. And if he does sort of outbox Hamzah Sheeraz again, that the judges' scorecards do reflect that, especially given what he was up against in terms of what appeared to be boxing politics. Vergil Ortiz versus Israil Madrimov. Now we have this fight. This was for the WBC Interim Super Welterweight Championship. Vergil Ortiz, obviously one of the best at 154. Israil Madrimov surprised some people, pushing Terence Crawford last August. So this was a fun matchup. Vergil Ortiz ends up winning. I thought it was very, very close. I saw some people had it a draw. I think that was fair, given that Vergil Ortiz really struggled to get it going consistently, but he took over late in that fight. Okay, Vergil Ortiz versus Israil Madrimov. By the numbers, Vergil Ortiz doesn't really do much in round 1, doesn't really do much in round 2, doesn't really do much in round 3. You're seeing it here. Just 3 out of 27, 5 out of 34, 4 out of 27. Then he starts to pick it up a little bit, and he sort of figures out, all right, here's how I can get to my offense. He was looking very flat-footed in the beginning. Israil Madrimov was really disrupting his rhythm. And this is what he was doing with Terence Crawford. Doesn't let guys sort of settle in and get into the stuff they want to get to. Vergil Ortiz wasn't getting to that left hook to the body early on, wasn't able to double up, wasn't able to surprise him with the punch variety, go upstairs, downstairs, and hit him with these combinations and really get to that body, which he loves to get to. And you see it here reflected in the numbers. He did progressively do it as the fight went. You see, I just saw something that jumped out at me we're going to get to in a second. So right here in the middle, things started to look better for Vergil Ortiz. 10 of 43, 14 of 48, 20 of 51. And then over here, round 9, this is where it really felt like, okay, Vergil Ortiz is putting something special together. Round 9 is 36 of 73, landing 49% of his punches. And over here, if you look down here, power punches, 27 of 47 in terms of power punches, landing 57%, whereas Israil Madrimov just 6 for 18. So Vergil Ortiz with a big advantage there in round 9, and that's where he really took this over. And if you just look at sort of the rest here, then down here, you see the final punch stats report. Vergil Ortiz outlands Israil Madrimov by almost 40 punches. 166 out of 561 landed. The key here, though, body punches, 65 to 22. A lot busier there, also more accurate, 29.6% versus 27.3%. And then the power punches you see right here on the corner, 106 to 97, 106 out of 281, 97 out of 279, 38 to 35% roughly there. So in terms of what's next, Vergil Ortiz versus Xander Zayas is going to gain some steam. I've said here on this channel and elsewhere on the Mandatory with Bryan and Chantel, I think that Vergil Ortiz is not going to fight Xander Zayas next, because I think Xander Zayas is going to be in line to main event. Puerto Rican Day Parade weekend. Top Rank is probably going to get in that June card, get him a nice main event. Don't know who that's going to be against. Charles Conwell is currently lobbying for this, which is very interesting because they are the top 2 contenders for the WBO and in the WBC. You have Sergey Bohachuk, you have Israil Madrimov, and then you have Xander Zayas and Charles Conwell right there. So 154 is very interesting in that regard. And it does feel like Xander Zayas is going to take another step up opponent, but not sure it's going to be Charles Conwell, even though that'd be nice. And I don't think it's going to be Vergil Ortiz next. Let's remember, Vergil Ortiz also has the interim title for the WBC. Sebastian Fundora is defending the WBC title in March against Cordell Booker. That's going to be on a PBC on Amazon card. Sebastian Fundora also has the WBO title. So this is important to note for the Vergil Ortiz, Xander Zayas fight that everybody wants to see. Sebastian Fundora has both titles that guys are going to fight for. Like, we know because Xander Zayas is not just the #1 contender for the WBO, but because he has a top rank deal, he's probably going to fight for that WBO title at some point. But also Vergil Ortiz has the interim WBC, and Sebastian Fundora for now, unless he loses to Cordell Booker, holds all the cards. I think what's probably going to happen is maybe Sebastian Fundora's hand gets forced, and sometimes, you know, guys just have to vacate, or something comes along where it's like, you're making me fight this person, but I want to fight somebody else, so I'm going to vacate this title. Like, one of these titles, it feels like they're going to get vacated so that Xander Zayas can fight for the WBO title, or Vergil Ortiz just gets elevated to the full WBC champion. Maybe Xander Zayas' fight for in June is for the interim title. If it's against Charles Conwell, that'd be nice, and you could easily do that for an interim title. If you get the interim title off of Terrence Crawford, who currently has the interim title, but he shouldn't have the interim title if he's going to fight Canelo Alvarez. Like, there's a whole bunch of moving parts here for Vergil Ortiz. We're looking at maybe he fights Sebastian Fundora or Cordell Booker, the winner of that, for the full WBC title later this year, or stays busy and fights someone else. I just don't think that someone else is going to be Xander Zayas. And if Xander Zayas isn't going to fight Charles Conwell in June, which I don't know, but I don't think Top Rank would do that yet, why not Vergil Ortiz versus Charles Conwell? Charles Conwell is a top 5 contender ranked by the WBC. That's a fight that makes a ton of sense. And honestly, it's a fight that I think could be a lot of fun. And I don't think Vergil Ortiz is just going to walk away with the victory very easily there. I think Charles Conwell is going to make it a long night. It's going to be a tough one. That was a fun card. There was a lot of interesting fights, a lot of interesting moments, and a lot of other fights that can be made coming from this. Let me know what you want to see in terms of some of the winners, some of the losers, and some of the matchmaking that you want to see moving forward. And if you disagree with any of the analysis, any of the numbers and what they sort of indicated, any of the results, feel free to leave them in the comments. Just don't be a dick. That's my only rule. Take care. Have a good one. Like, comment, subscribe, all those different things. And we'll talk again very, very soon. Thank you for watching.